Morning, welcome to the monthly meeting of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission on April 25th. I'm Dave Pierce, treasurer, standing in as the chair with this meeting today. So our first order of business will be reviewing the minutes of March 21st, and we'll combine a decision on that with the roll call. Is there a motion?
So moved, approved, as presented.
We have a motion for approval and second. And so Sylvia, proceed through the roll call and the
All right,
motion.
sure thing. Starting with Auburn, we have Paula Martzloff.
Present.
Thank you. In Bedford, we have Danielle Ivanzik.
Present and approved.
Thank you so much. In Chester, we have Deb Munson.
Here and approved.
Thanks, Deb. Let's see, Derry, we have in the room both John O'Connor
Present, yes.
and Jeff Moulton.
Here and yes.
Francistown in the room, we have Linda Kuhnhart.
Here and yes.
And from Goffstown, we have Dave Pierce.
Here, yes.
From Hooksett Online, we have Denise Pitchett Folk. Denise? We're not hearing you, but if you can just do a thumbs up.
We can't see you.
We can't hear or see you, yeah, technicalities. Denise is having some technical difficulties, so.
Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah, present and yes, I am traveling in the North Country with spotty reception, so I will try to stay connected.
all right, well, thank you for you know, being part of this journey here with us while you're on your own journey. Londonderry, all virtual, Brian Battaglia. I thought I saw Brian.
Yeah, it's right there.
He's there. I see him anyway.
Brian, you're here, present, and we're on the minutes.
It sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna take that as yes.
Yes.
Deb Levens.
Present and yes.
Thank you, Deb. Art Rugg.
I am present virtually and yes on the minutes.
Thank you, Art. Manchester in the room. We have Peter Capano,
Present and yes.
Ray Clement,
Present, yes.
and Danielle. Oh my God, Danielle. Sorry, Dan O'Neill.
Here and yes.
Thank you for, can tell that's not a Danielle.
Let's see.
What did I do now?
No, he's not gonna.
Oh,
Snuck in behind.
one. And we have Marcus Ponce de Leon.
Present, yes.
And did anyone else come in while I was focused on my paper? No. Okay, from Wyndham, we have Ed Lapointe.
Here, yes.
Thanks, Ed. Did I miss anyone? And of course, from New Hampshire DOT, we have Lucy St. John.
Good afternoon, I abstain.
Thank you, Lucy, and non-voting members present, but just to say hello, we have Ricky DeCillo from New Hampshire DES.
Hello.
Thank you, and we have Matt Baronis from Central New Hampshire Planning Commission.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you all. The motion passes. Sylvia, any item on the agenda under old business?
Not that I can think of.
Moving on in
We
the
might
new.
want to just alert people that pizza is late today. It should be here about 11:45.
Right, we will, so for our virtual audience, I know you're always envious of our pizza break, and so you'll be given your own break in about 20 minutes or so when the pizza comes, and everyone's going to want to have a beeline to the pizza, so we'll let you know when that's happening.
Thank you. Nate, could you do the agenda item on the 23 to 26 tip?
I certainly will. Let's see.
This is information only, right?
Information only today. You're getting a sneak peek. Review. Tip amendment number 1.
Doesn't ever.
All right, yeah, well, you're right, Peter. We just adopted the tip back in February and we already are preparing to amend it. And for the next, I don't know, 75 slides or so, I'm gonna tell you about all of the projects. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It never gets old.
So yes, New Hampshire DOT has requested that we amend our fiscal 23 to 26 tip, newly adopted back in February, to accommodate a series of project adjustments. There are actually only 4 project changes in tip amendment number 1, so you won't be hearing me drone on for too long today. I'll just be
Just for our region or for the whole state?
for our region, only 4
Okay.
project changes, yeah. There are others that affect our colleagues at other MPOs, but for us, just 4. We do anticipate releasing tip amendment number 1 on Monday, May 8th. We'll hold a 10-day public comment period, and we will have a public hearing to consider adoption of amendment number 1 at our meeting next month, which is May 23rd. What are the 4 projects being changed in amendment number 1? First of all, the Candia Route 2743 and Raymond Road Safety Improvement Project. That's at the 4 corners in Candia. We do have a proposed amendment to increase engineering phase funding and basically adding engineering phase funding in fiscal 24 and 25. The engineering phase of that project did start this year, fiscal 23. They just were out there doing survey work and they're continuing to do survey work. So this is necessary to accommodate the design schedule for the project, and engineering phase work will continue until fiscal 2026. So we're programming that fiscal 24 and 25 engineering funding for that project. In Manchester, a CMAC project from a couple of years ago, as you may recall, it's the construction of a roundabout at the entrance to Dairyfield School. That's at River Road and Bicentennial Drive. The amendment is to move a portion of engineering phase funding from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24 and move construction phase funding to fiscal 25. And that is based on the anticipated schedule for the project. Based on the progress of the project, it's anticipated that that project's going to advertise for construction in fiscal year 2025. A new project statewide, it's the development of a resilience improvement plan. This is a new project. It'll be budgeted for $165,000 in federal funding to develop a statewide resilience improvement plan. What is a resilience improvement plan? Well, it would help the state identify infrastructure vulnerabilities and propose solutions. But there's a financial incentive to doing a resilience improvement plan under the newly established PROTECT program. That's one of the programs that the state will see formula funding and compete for discretionary funding under the new transportation bill, what we call the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That PROTECT program incentivizes the development of statewide resilience improvement plans, and as well as resilience improvement plans at the regional level, by reducing the non-federal cost share requirement for projects that have been identified in such plans. So potentially you could see projects that come out of those plans funded by the PROTECT program and have a non-federal cost share requirement 10% lower than it otherwise would be. So that is a financial incentive for resilience improvement planning. So the state is planning to do one at a statewide scale accordingly. Lastly, the fourth and final project is a scope change only. It's to a statewide program that used to be known as the Pavement Tier 1 Resurfacing. Tier 1 are basically interstates and turnpikes and large divided highways. It used to be known as a resurfacing program. It will be known in the future as a preservation program. So the only change here is one word. The approved scope is resurface tier 1 highways. The proposed scope is preservation of tier 1 highways. There is a difference between resurfacing and preservation. New Hampshire DOT defines the term preservation as work to deter or correct deterioration of a transportation asset intended to extend its useful life. So it doesn't entail any improvements to the project, structural improvements or capacity improvements or anything of that nature. It is simply to maintain the, am I admitting people here?
It's essentially a bigger umbrella of a term.
It's a bigger umbrella of a term, but still a term that does not entail any sort of significant structural or capacity improvements to a roadway. It's a bigger term than resurfacing, but not by much. It's a broader view of maintaining a road beyond simply resurfacing that road. But those big operational improvements or capacity improvements are still not included in the scope here. And that is it. Quick and easy, 4 projects and amendment number 1. I'm happy to answer any questions. You will have amendment number 1 in your packets for next month. So you'll have another opportunity to offer comments and feedback. Again, today is just kind of a sneak preview, but these 4 projects are what will be included. Yes.
Where do I get the definition of the components of a resilience plan?
I can send, yeah.
Resilience, just, I could just.
Yeah, I can send you, basically there's a federal guidance document that's prepared by the Federal Highway Administration for the Protect program.
Whatever.
It goes into detail about that effort within that. Yep.
Please.
Yep, I can send that to
Thank
you.
you.
I have a question as
Yeah.
well. Regarding the roundabout on Bicentennial in Manchester. It's my understanding that is privately funded.
The match is coming from a private source.
The match is coming.
Yes.
So there is some outside funds.
It's CMAQ funded with the match being provided by the school.
Is there any particular reason why that it hasn't moved a little faster? It seems like that thing has been more or less figured out 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, actually, the moving the construction to 2025 is an advancement.
It is.
Yeah, it's the construction is currently programmed farther out than that. So the amendment actually does advance the construction to 2025. So it is moving perhaps a little more slowly than we might have otherwise anticipated, but the amendment actually does advance the construction to 25.
Such a little job. But anyway, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions on amendment
That's
number
him
1?
over there.
All right, I will yield the floor back to you, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, Dave, so we can acknowledge, we've had Jacob LaFontaine from Goffstown join us. Dan Heath from Bedford, and then we have someone named Dana, and just wondering if you could identify which community or agency you're representing.
Absolutely. Dana Theokis from Chester.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, could you spell your last name?
It's T as in Tom, HEOKAS.
Theokis.
Mhm.
It is the way it sounds. Thank you very much, Peter. Oh, yeah. That makes it obvious. Okay, and let's see, Dave Tilton from our staff is also joined us.
Our next information briefing is from Tammy here on the regional planning staff. Tammy,
Thank you.
bike month, right?
Yes, I have a 5-minute bike month preview for you all. Can everybody see my full screen at home?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So National Bike Month has been around since 1956 as an opportunity for us to showcase the benefits of bicycling and also to encourage other folks to give it a try. This year, we partnered with New Hampshire DOT and the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire to promote New Hampshire Bike Month, so not just National Bike Month. Some of the notable dates are May 3rd is Bike and Roll to School Day. May 7th is National Ride a Bike Day. May 15th through the 21st is Bike to Work Week, and May 19th is Bike to Work Day. And I do have copies of these posters out by the door if you want to grab some on your way out. You can see the entire state's list of Bike Month events on the Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire's event calendar. That's bikewalkalliancenewhampshire.org/calendar. I also have posters that are specific to our region by the front door, so feel free to grab those as well. I'm just going to run through the events really quick, and if you want more details, you can go to this event or check out the poster. So May 4th, the Queen City Bike Collective will be offering free valet bike parking at the Manchester Taco Tour. They will be set up outside of SNHU Arena. So if you bike down to the event, you can leave your bike with them and then come and pick it up when you're ready. May 5th through the 31st, the Central New Hampshire Bike Coalition, Mass Bike, and Concord Lake Sunapee Rail Trail is lending us their covered bike parking structure, which you can see on the left here. This was at Manchester City Hall last spring. So it'll be living at the North Londonderry Exit 5 Park and Ride for the month of May. So we wanted to use this as a way to encourage people to bike to the bus. On May 6th, the Chester Police Department will be holding a bike rodeo. This will include bike tune-ups and helmets for the first 15 children. May 13th, the Hooks at Kiwanis will be hosting their annual Children's Safety Day, which will include bicycle registration with the Hooks at Police, bicycle safety inspection, a challenge safety obstacle course, and free helmets as well. On May 16th, the New Hampshire Rail Trail Coalition, Granite State Wheelers, and Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire will be hosting a spring fling event here in Manchester at Great North Aleworks. So this will be a social event, and I believe all of the organizations will talk a little bit about their plans for 2023. On May 17th, the Bike Walk Alliance will be hosting a Relearn to Ride a Bike class right here on the Piscataquag Rail Trail near the office. I checked this morning and there are 3 spaces available if anybody's interested. If the class sells out, I think that they might hold another class, so don't worry if you don't make this one. On May 20th is the Tour de Francistown. This is a gravel bike ride. There are 25 and 50-mile options for those of you who are feeling ambitious. And I think this is the final one. On May 21st, the New Boston Rail Trail will be hosting a 6-mile bike event starting and ending at the Whipple Free Library. And I believe that they will have t-shirt sales and cookies and lemonade. We also just want to encourage everybody to check out the Commute Smart New Hampshire Spring Challenge. They host this challenge every year. You can use their software to log any of your sustainable trips, which is any trip not made in a car by yourself. So if you bike, walk, carpool, take transit, or even telecommute, you can use the software to log your trips, and then you can be entered to win prizes. This is also becoming a really great resource for ride matching. So if you're looking for somebody to carpool with to work or someone to ride your bike with, you can use this software and they will try to match up someone with a similar route. And I just wanted to end with a quick PSA. 7 years ago this month, I was hit by a truck on my bike while coming home from work. So I just wanted to remind everybody that April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month. And if you have any questions or any events that maybe weren't on my radar, feel free to chat with me after the meeting, or you can email me or call me. And that is me from the October Commute Smart Challenge, dressed as a witch. It's kind of hard to see, but I do have a broomstick attached to my bike.
Tammy, are electric
Yes.
bikes allowed?
Yes, of course. Yeah, e-bikes are definitely welcome.
Yes. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Tammy, I was at a brewery in Londonderry Saturday, and they mentioned they are part of some, it might be informal, maybe it is formal. There's apparently like 7 breweries off of rail trails around Manchester and Londonderry, maybe into Derry.
Okay,
Is that just the breweries talking, or is there some formal?
I haven't heard of anything, but I will definitely look into that. I know that there is a great network. That's a real threat for that.
Was that Central?
No, I was at Blue Dog.
Long Blue
Across
Cat.
from- That's it, not
It's
Blue
next
Dog.
to my dog kennel.
That's the one,
Yep.
right across Fort and trailers and that, yeah. Pretty cool place, but they mentioned they're right off the trail and there's others right off trails and.
So we could be economic development, enticing tourists from other states to come here for a brewery tour.
Absolutely, but that was somebody saying that there, and I don't know where they all are, but Backyard Brewery's not that far away.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
look into that. Thank you.
And it's a good coincidence. I'm with the Friends of the Gulfstown Rail Trail. We're going before the Select Board in Gulfstown in May, so it's appropriate. We're asking for the Select Board to officially endorse a route through the roads in the village of Gulfstown to get to the New Boston Rail Trail. And DOT has agreed for us to paint bicycle markings on the shoulder of 114, but there's 3 different side roads you can go through the village in order to get to a particular intersection on 114. So I'm asking the Select Board to bless one of the 3 routes, which would then allow us to put up, spend money for signage, route guidance signage, and allow DPW to paint the markings and spend money.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that's.
So
moving
it's a
along.
coincidence, which will take advantage of May being bike.
The Church Street.
The 3 options are turning left on Depot, turning left on Church, or turning left on North Mast. And the first one is the preferred one, immediately turning left, rather than continuing through the center of Main Street.
Any questions?
Tammy, thank you.
You're welcome. Do we have any questions from the virtual audience, or we're all set? We're all set. And the pizza's here, so I think this is a good pizza break.
Okay, we'll take, for the folks at home, we're taking a 5-minute break as we gather in the hallway here and pick up our pizzas.
Hey Sylvia, if I'm next on the agenda, I'll go ahead and queue up my slides. Oh, never mind.
We're resuming our agenda and with Suzanne. The subject here, informational briefing on our climate workshop update.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be with you today. I'm battling a little cold and wanted to spare you the contagion so you can enjoy your pizza in peace. So I'm really happy to be able to talk to you today about some climate planning updates that are going on. I'll start by giving a very high level overview of the climate planning initiative that we're currently focused on. You've heard it before, so I'll keep that short. I want to dig into some insights that came out of our workshop that we held on April 11th at the Derry Municipal Center. And then I want to highlight a couple of opportunities that may be of interest to folks in the room and online. Can everyone see my full screen and it's advancing for you?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so just to review, some of the key climate concerns that we're facing here in New Hampshire have to do with extreme precipitation events. Basically, in a warming planet, when it rains, it pours, and we're going to see a much greater frequency of very high level precipitation events, 1, 2, even 3 inches in a day. There'll be higher risk of flooding. And of course, that means there's very significant risk to our infrastructure. So we're really concerned about how to address these infrastructure vulnerability issues. We are also building on a very rigorous piece of work that the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission put out in 2020. And this was a regional vulnerability assessment. And this took a very detailed look at all of the stream crossings in the region, specifically culverts, bridges, anything that might be vulnerable to flooding. They created a nice rubric for kind of evaluating the level of vulnerability at each site. And, the team put together a really nice GIS map that's interactive that shows where these culverts and stream crossings are, what the level of ownership is, whether it's municipal, state, or other, and really presents a great tool for kind of investigating some of the most vulnerable roadways in our community. What we're doing right now, and I've been working to a large degree with Zach Swick, who's in the room, but we're expanding our technical analysis. We want to kind of increase our lens and capture other types of vulnerabilities. We want to also look at things like steep slopes, roads that are in the floodplains, instances that might be vulnerable to fluvial erosion, where a riverbank might be shifting. We are looking forward to providing some very practical implementation guidance and are starting to develop a roadway adaptation toolkit that I'll share more about. And then we're really excited to be advancing regional climate collaboration. This is a very urgent moment for us to be talking about climate issues. We've held our first kind of inaugural climate workshop about 10 days or 2 weeks ago, and we will be doing this annually and having other opportunities for folks to talk about climate issues in their communities. So looking back at what we did in Derry on April 11th, first of all, really grateful to have such an amazing facility to host this at. We were able to do a hybrid format. So this was broadcast on derrycam.org, and the staff report you all received should have a link to take you to that page. You can actually view the entire workshop. And I have to say, DerryCam is amazing. They have multiple cameras. It's kind of cinematic in nature. It's much more interesting to watch than your typical recording. We had over 40 people involved, more than half of those in person, but also a really nice level of participation online. We asked people a few questions right at the top of the workshop and had about a third of the folks respond as they were kind of getting settled in. What brought you here today? And obviously climate concerns were really top of mind, but people are also really interested in having a forum for collaboration and increasing their access to resources related to climate. We also wanted to kind of assess what the areas of expertise were in the room. And we know that a lot of folks in our municipalities are wearing multiple hats. So we were like, you can select up to 3. So we saw that we had really strong leadership in the room related to planning and transportation and the environment. And then we also had like a really great cross-section of people coming at this from lots of different angles. And moving forward, we might find other ways to kind of do further outreach to attract more folks from the public works, public safety realm. And then we did a little bit of a poll, like a sliding scale poll, where people were able to share on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about climate impacts in your community? And as you can see, the average score was over 8. So, obviously there's some self-selection bias, like who comes to a climate workshop, people who are concerned about climate, but we know that this is something crucially important to the region, and it's only going to get more urgent for us to be addressing these issues. A quick overview of the agenda. We started out with a mini keynote presentation from the Federal Highway Administration, and they were able to share a lot about kind of national trends as well as some key funding opportunities. So that PROTECT formula funding that Nate mentioned was one of the key items that they were wanting to talk about. And in fact, that NOFO has been released, and I think there should be a sustainability e-blast in your inboxes to that effect as well. It's something really exciting for us to be thinking about, because we know that there are federal resources available to support some of these climate initiatives that we're interested in. We then had a fantastic panel discussion about climate leadership and collaboration across New Hampshire. And we had some really wonderful speakers from other RPCs. We had a representation from UNH. We also had a representative from the Nature Conservancy. So a really nice perspective coming from different sectors and different parts of our state. And then we had a really fantastic collaborative work session. We had a worksheet that people could kind of dig into that it's basically going to form the basis of the roadway adaptation toolkit that we'll be developing. So we were able to get really detailed input from folks in the room, and there was an electronic version distributed to everyone online as well. And just to dig in a little bit and kind of give you some insights into that collaborative working session. So, you know, again, like we want to have something that's very tangible, practical, a checklist. We know that not every community can do everything, but that there's probably something that you can be doing, and that it's really great to have a toolkit and a way to kind of overlay a lens onto any initiative that you're faced with. So I've been doing a detailed resource scan with, you know, looking at federal materials, statewide resources, other resources that are published by other MPOs, anything that was around roadway adaptation, and basically pulled from many different resources and called together a list of a few different roadway adaptation strategies that really fall along 5 key approaches: design and engineering, environmental initiatives, operations and maintenance, outreach and collaboration, and data collection, analysis, planning, and policy. The worksheets that folks received looked something like this. You're kind of getting a little insight. But we really asked people to kind of think about which section mattered most to them, find some partners to work with, and indicate, you know, which of these strategies are a top priority. And are there any clarifications, comments, ways that they're implementing in their communities that we should be aware of? So I'll just walk through these very quickly, but just to give you an insight of what was on the worksheet and what kind of responses we got. So for design and engineering, one of the top strategies was, you know, how do we update our roadway design standards? How do we make sure that we have kind of a climate ready lens in the way that we're building our transportation infrastructure? We also want to think about the wear and asset lifespan of that, and make sure that we're accounting for climate hazards. What we thought was a lifespan of a bridge might not be accurate as we start to look at what extreme precipitation is doing to our region. We want to also think about retrofitting specific vulnerable sites to withstand extreme weather events, and whether that's upgrading a culvert, elevating a roadway or a bridge. There's lots of different ways to approach it, but that was another key strategy. And one of the insights that we heard from the folks in the room that were really focused on this topic was that they're very interested in the potential for design innovations and being really mindful of what resources are available today, and how can we really start to make improvements that we can then expand upon as we garner more resources, and as we are gaining a better understanding of just how significant the precipitation events will be in our region. Oops, I don't know how that happened. Sorry, apologies. Let me back that out for a second, and it just jumped ahead without my knowledge. So getting back to it, the second topic was looking at environmental issues. And of course, we want to preserve our wetlands and floodplains and make sure that those are well managed, that we can really be attending to the stormwater in our region. We also want to look at green infrastructure opportunities, low impact development opportunities, nature-based solutions, so that we're really working with our natural resources to manage precipitation. And then updating vegetation control practices. And that could mean updating our mowing schedules. It could be looking at monitoring and removing invasive species or planting more flood tolerant species. Some sample insights here. People were really excited about green infrastructure. In fact, if we tallied up which strategies got the most priority check marks, this one, by far and away, this category got the most priority checks. So there's a lot of enthusiasm around what the possibilities are and how this can impact our roadway design standards, creating more bioswales, planting more street trees, looking at permeable pavements, and also looking at how this could impact other local regulations to make sure we're considering stormwater capture, and low impact development across other types of standards. The next section was operations and maintenance. And we wanted to look at optimized monitoring, maintenance, and replacement of bridges and culverts. What is our monitoring schedule? Is there a maintenance backlog that needs to be attended to? Updating seasonal maintenance programs, whether that means, being mindful of beaver activity, thinking about what kind of de-icing processes and procedures we're using in the winter time. Green Snow Pro came up as a particular opportunity. And then also establishing flexible and responsive maintenance capabilities. Whether that means having on-call contracts so that when emergencies do arise, you have the contract in place to start addressing these issues. Sample insights. So I would say that among the larger communities in our region, they were less concerned about this area. They really feel like they have the capacity. There isn't the maintenance backlog. They feel relatively on top of this area. I would say that smaller communities were much more likely to say that they could use support with making sure that their assessments are up to date, that they have funding and staffing to actually make sure that the maintenance and operations components are well addressed. Outreach and collaboration was our next topic. And here we're talking about staff training, knowledge sharing, increasing public awareness of safety concerns around flooding. And then also strengthening multi-sector partnerships and collaboration, having more of these workshops that bring people together and really get people focused on making changes and taking action on the ground. A key insight that we learned was that public outreach is absolutely essential. Sometimes climate data can come across as really technical. People kind of it washes over them, but they don't know what they can do. And I think folks in the room saw a real opportunity to make information really accessible and actionable to everyone. Thinking about how kind of individual residents in a community can do their part, for example, keeping driveway culverts clear. The last section is on data collection, analysis, planning, and policy. And I think that, there's a lot of ways to approach this. We want to make sure that we have data that's as accurate as possible and that we're regularly inventorying our stream crossings and our roadway assets and understanding how those are impacted by the most up-to-date climate models. We want to develop climate priorities and make sure that those are really comprehensively incorporated across all of our plans and policies, whether that's long-range transportation planning, hazard mitigation planning, comp plans, and more. And then finally, how can we integrate climate data to guide our ongoing decision-making? And whether that means thinking about our RFPs and procurement processes or the way we kind of monitor our costs and track our budgets. How do we get a better sense of just how much climate change is really costing our communities? I would say that the kind of major takeaway we heard from the room was that, we need good data in order to make good decisions. So that people are really excited about opportunities to kind of make sure that we have all of the stream crossing data, all the data at our fingertips and readily updated on a regular basis. And also, people are very cognizant of the fact that we cannot function in isolation. Like one community could be doing everything it can, but it's still going to be impacted by, that the actions or lack thereof of communities around them. So there's a real assertion that we need to be working regionally and at the statewide level and even beyond in order to make sure that we really can make changes and protect the resiliency of our communities. And with that, I just want to highlight a key opportunity. So the roadway adaptation toolkit we're currently drafting, it will be kind of emerging from a lot of those strategies I just discussed. We think it's really important to be able to ground this in a sense of place, right? And make sure that we're bringing to the table kind of and spotlighting the expertise of communities and practitioners throughout the region. So I really see an opportunity here to highlight some specific case studies and specific insights from folks that might be in the room today, or folks who might be interested in contributing to something like this. There's two major options. One is a facilitated work session, and the other one is a practitioner interview. So this facilitated work session, we actually are going to do one this week in Chester, which we're really excited about. I have to just get myself healthy enough to be presenting publicly. This is going to be a small group with just 2 or 3 stakeholders who are really kind of in the mix with understanding what are the particular areas of concern for one vulnerable corridor in the region. We're going to pull all the data that we can. We'll facilitate about a 90-minute discussion. And then we'll see what are some other questions that are emerging. What are some areas where we might be able to conduct a little bit of additional analysis and develop a draft case study that outlines some key recommendations for moving forward. And then, of course, we think that, there might be people who aren't able to weigh in at that level, but would like to get on the phone and have a chat for 20 or 30 minutes and talk about how some of these ideas and approaches are really influencing their day-to-day work. So we'll do a series of 30-minute interviews, probably record those, gather a lot of different perspectives of people who are approaching this in different municipalities and different kind of professions across the region. And then we'll select some pull quotes to illustrate some key concepts that we'll use in the toolkit. So with that, I just want to put my information up here. Love to hear from anybody on the call or in the room today who might be interested in participating and contributing to the toolkit. And of course, I might follow up with you individually after whether or not you volunteer. So thank you again. And that's it for now. And just, there were a couple other slides, but we get very positive feedback. I just left these exit questionnaire slides and people really felt like it advanced their understanding for opportunities for adapting roadways in the face of climate change. I'll stop.
Susan, before I ask for questions, go back in your slide presentation to number 2 or 3.
Yep.
It
Hold on just a
was
second.
the cover of a pamphlet or brochure.
Sure. Just
It showed an old culvert.
Yes, the cover, this one?
No, yes.
Yeah.
Just bring that up, Paul.
Of course.
Anyways, first of all, thank you for leading here in our commission, in our region, this effort. It's terribly complex and it needs a focus of one person to make it move forward, and you're doing that. Thank you. And the need for this is exemplified right by that picture. Using granite blocks to make an abutment for a culvert harkens back to the days where there was no engineering. The road agent probably went to his yard and pulled out whatever pipe he had on hand and stacked granite blocks around it. And that was the extent of engineering planning. World is much more complex, and that's what you're trying to tackle now with taking many more attributes of weather and into account when culverts are built. Thank you, Susan. Good picture. Anyways, questions in the room on what Susan's doing for the climate workshop? For the folks watching in,
Do you want to stop sharing so we can see that group? Okay.
Suzanne, thank you for your presentation and continue to do the fine work of leading this effort.
Thank you.
Sylvia, wrapping up our first half of the day with metropolitan planning. Anything else?
Nothing else on the MPO.
I have a motion to adjourn our MPO session. I had a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. We are adjourned, and I call to order the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. First item on the agenda is reviewing our minutes that were from March 21st. We have a first and a second. And any discussion on the minutes that have been written?
Shall I do the go around?
Yes, so let's just do a vote.
All right, so from Auburn, we have Paula. Bedford, virtually, we have Danielle Heath.
I'm here, and I approve.
And Danielle Ivanzik.
That's Danielle Ivanzik, sorry.
And right, and it's Daniel Heath. Yeah, Daniel Heath. Do we have a thumbs up from Dan? Oh, okay, good. Chester, we have Deb Munson. Derry, Jeff Moulton,
Here and yes.
John O'Connor.
Yes, yes.
Linda from Francistown,
Yes.
Goffstown Dave,
Here, yes.
Jacob LaFontaine.
Here and yes.
Thanks, Jacob. Hooksett, well, Denise had to leave. Londonderry, we have Brian,
Here and yes.
Deb,
Here and yes.
Arthur,
I'm here and yes on the minutes.
thank you. Manchester, Peter,
Yes, yes.
Ray,
Here and yes.
Dan,
Here and yes.
and Marcus.
Here and yes.
Thank you, and Wyndham Ed.
Here and yes.
And that should do it for the commission side of this.
So the minutes have been approved and Sylvia, you're now a presentation, please.
Right, so we're looking to do a bit of a recap, our housing team. We have Tammy is going to start us off, then Zach will get you into the highlights of the data. Now, when I say highlights of the data, know that there are hundreds of pages of data. And so I think Zach did a great job in narrowing that down. And then I'll talk about a little bit about outreach and next steps. And can everybody see the full screen on the home viewers?
Yep.
Thanks, Cam. All right, why don't you take it away, Tammy?
And I'll just precede you. This is leading to a motion, right?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Dave. Yes, we would like you to adopt the housing needs assessment today.
So pay attention because we're going to adopt something.
And note that we've been talking about this since about this time last year when we started talking about surveying. And so we've brought the different aspects of this a few times. So it's a little bit of things I hope you haven't seen before.
Take it away.
You can go to the dots and ask it to go away, so you can hide the floating meeting controls.
Thank you. Okay, as Sylvia mentioned, this process has been going on for a while. Back in August of 2021, the Regional Planning Commissions and the Office of Planning and Development, OPD, began their plan coordination, oversight, and administration. And then they developed the project scope and the plan chapter outline. In January of 2022, all of the RPCs developed different subcommittees to work on different aspects of the plan. Each of those varied from 4 months to an entire year for their duration. So we reviewed all the chapter sections, created work plan development, integrated program elements into a shared file, and began really to collaborate. In January of 2022, we began our data research and coordination with the Regional Planning Commission Data Group. In February of 2022, we began our outreach process, including the surveys and the community meetings that we held. And in January of this year, we continued our outreach and we've been doing a bunch of community presentations as well as the development of the draft plan. Sorry, I'm not used to using PowerPoint. Is the presentation or the meeting slide in here?
I told you I moved that. one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so now I will give you a tour of our project website. So this can be accessed via our homepage. If you go to snhpc.org, there's a big regional housing needs logo right on the front page, and you can click there. And this is where it takes you.
Do you need to share this?
Can the home viewers see this? Our webpage?
Okay,
We can see the slideshow image of the webpage.
okay.
I think you have to escape or something.
There we go. Sorry about that. And now I need to hide this again.
We can see that.
Okay, thanks, Cam. So when you get to our website, there are 3 sections. There's a document section, a what is a housing needs assessment, and then an area to get involved. So if you scroll down here, we have the link to the draft housing needs assessment. And then we have all of the appendices. So we have Appendix A, the glossary of terms. Appendix B, the engagement process. Appendix C, the quantitative data. And then the New Hampshire Housing Toolbox, which includes planning and zoning strategies for housing production in New Hampshire communities. And then we've also shared the slides from our various presentations. Okay, can you see the PowerPoint again?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the draft document includes 7 sections. There's acknowledgements, followed by an executive summary, and then a project introduction, existing conditions and historic trends, future conditions and housing projections, housing choices, opportunities, and barriers, followed by our conclusions. And then we just went over the appendices as well. And now I'll turn it over to Zach to talk about the key findings and understanding the data.
Buckle in, buckle in.
Okay, so presented on this a couple of different times, whether it's at the executive committee, the TAC, the MPO. So some of these you will have seen before. I tried to grab some that you probably haven't seen. And then I know there were a bunch that we had to race through because we were short for time. And now that I see that I have plenty of time, I'm gonna, make up for all that lost time by taking longer than I should. So enjoy. We start off with some context, and one is just, what do we talk about, New Hampshire being a rural state or a suburban state or urban state? New Hampshire is a rural state if we think about it as in the land being the characteristic, but if we talk about where people actually live, 3 out of 5 people live in New Hampshire live in an urban area as defined by the census. It's not to say that, everybody lives in that urban area. If you live in Francistown or if you live in, Warren, New Hampshire, you really live in a rural area, but most people don't. And you can see on the left there that we have, the percentage that's living of each of the New England states that's living in a rural, living in an urban area. And you can see that the southern New England states, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island are all pretty high. They're about 86, 90, whatever. And then we look at Maine and Vermont, they're about 39 and 35. We look at New Hampshire, we're 58. So we're kind of in between. We're kind of we talk about northern New England, southern New England. New Hampshire's a little bit different, really, where it's not quite as urban as Massachusetts, but it's also not as rural as someplace like Maine or Vermont. And how did that happen exactly? Well, what happened was on the left there, we have looking at the decadal growth rate for the whole state going back from 1910, and then it's projected out to 2050. And you can see that around 1940 something happens, and what happens is everybody who had moved out of New Hampshire because they couldn't grow anything here, there was all this land, and now there was a bunch of highways coming in and people living in the cities, and you could commute from southern New Hampshire to your job in northern Massachusetts. And so people started moving here, and we had really high growth rates. It was I can't see if that's 1980. There's a 25% growth rate. In that year, it grew, that decade, it grew by 25%, which is huge. And I'm a part of that, because if you look at Hudson there, we see Hudson between 1970 and 2020 grew by 139%. Obviously not part of our region, but that's where Zach and his family moved in 1989. So my dad could, live there and commute to his job in Cambridge at 128. And there was plenty of that. But as we can also see from the growth rate, is now it's coming down, and it's coming down fast. And we can see that in things like the number of minors per household. So, minors per household have fallen, this is just the total number of minors divided by the total number of households, has fallen a lot. And in the region between 1980 and 2020, in our region, it's fallen by 35%. So in 1980, in our region, there was on average 0.81 minors in each household. Today, it's 0.53. And that's something that we see throughout the state. In some areas, it's been much higher. So Candia fell by more than 50%. And we see this in other statistics, like in statewide, in the past 2 decades, public school enrollment has fallen by 22%. What's going on there? Well, we probably talked to this ad nauseum, but we've said that New Hampshire is aging. And you can see that in the percentages there on the left. That's, we don't have so we have the percentage that is, less than 25 years, or this percent of the total population is 20 years or younger, less than 20 years old. And then you have that 65 years old, but we essentially have minors and seniors there. And you can see that the percentage of minors in 1970 was about 40% of all the total population. Today, it's closer to about 20%. And it's projected to about kind of flat line at that level. At that same time, seniors has gone from 10% of the total population. Today, it's approaching 20%. And it's projected to increase up until about 25%, and then it's going to come down a little bit as we move through the baby boom population. But it also means that we're dealing with levels of older populations in our communities that we've never ever seen before. The relative change of 80 years or older in our region is expected to grow by 400% over the next couple decades. And that's reflected in what is, a decrease in natural population, which is births minus deaths. And, we have 2 lines there. We have, New Hampshire in black, and we have our counties that we're part of in red. We don't have good data for individual towns, so we have to settle for counties. But we can see that, consistently by 2025, New Hampshire is projected to have more deaths than births statewide, and our counties are projected to be having more births than deaths by 2030. And so any population increase we're going to see from that is from migration.
Did you mean more deaths than births?
What did I say? Oh, yes, more deaths than births.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah, okay, good. That was a test. And so if you look at the regional level, between 2020 and 2050, our region is expected to grow by about 32,000. And at that point, we'll actually start decreasing, even with migration. Other areas in the state, like Southwest or the North Country, are already going to be decreasing by that time, although it's by very small amounts. We're talking about dozens or hundreds of people. And the only regional commission statewide that is not projected to be decreasing by 2050 in population is Stratford Regional Planning Commission, for whatever reason. But it looks like from the curve that within the next 5 years they would be as well. Okay, so that's the context on what we look like and where we are, but we're talking about housing. So let's talk about housing. On the left here, we have all of our towns plus the region plus New Hampshire, the total occupied housing units, number that are owner occupied and number are renter occupied. And you can see that Manchester is the only community that has more renter occupied housing units than than owner occupied. Though Derry also has a fair number with 33%. But there are some surprises in there, like Bedford with 15% occupied. If you had asked me Zach, do you think 1 in 7 households in Bedford is renter occupied? I probably would say no. So that number is higher than I thought, and it is for a lot of our towns like Deerfield, Londonderry is 14%. And then on the right, we have the number of units in a housing structure. So we have whole total number of housing units, and then we have it broken down by single family attached, 2 to 3 units, 3 to 4 units, 5 or more manufactured or other. Another can be boathouse, something like that. It's not really a big number in our region. So you can see that, throughout the region, with the exception of Manchester, the majority are single family detached. Derry is pretty close with just 51%. And, that's probably not surprising. Then, Manchester then has, 32% or 5 or more units. And that includes everything from, the triple decker that has been converted into 5 units that I rent, or it could be, a complex with 500 units. But there are surprises there too, like, Bedford, again, 13% of Bedford's housing units are in 5 or more units. We have if I have an image, a caricatured image of Bedford in my head, it's going to be, a big single family house sitting on a lot. Well, that's really not true. A lot of our communities have, large, have, more diversified housing stock than we, perceive in our mind's eye.
Zach,
Yes.
question right there, your chart on the right.
Yes.
How does that reflect college students in dormitories?
So they are not reflected.
Okay.
So if this is only non-group quarters. So, if you have like St. A's, all of those, they're all tracked in a totally different group.
Thank you.
And I should have said, if anybody has any questions going throughout this, don't wait to the end, speak up. I'll talk about this. Okay, well, let's look at percentage of housing type with 3 or more persons per unit. So this is just showing, we look at, jurisdiction, type of home, whether it's a single family, a duplex, multifamily. What percentage of those have 3 or more people in them? And I had to group some of these together because when you start getting down to some of the very small towns, you get weird stuff with the data. So I've grouped, the towns into 2 separate groups. One is those 10,000 population of 10,000 or more, and those with 10,000 or less. And for all those, we can see that, across all categories, the bigger household sizes are found in the family homes. But even then, region wide, and it's pretty close for towns over 10,000. Even single family homes, the majority of them, or a vast majority of them have, not vast majority, a fair number of them have less than, have 2 or less people living in them. So for town like Derry or Bedford or Goffstown, for the single family homes, only, roughly just barely more than half of them have 3 or more people in them. The rest are filled up with either 1 or 2 people. And then as we go through different housing types, you can see it decreases. So when you get to duplexes, it's even less. And when you get to multifamily, in region wide, only 1/5, 1 in 5 multifamily housing units has 3 or more people in it. The rest have either 2 or 1.
So Zach, just to be clear, if we look at the bottom one, which is towns with less than 10,000, if we go all the way to the right, multifamily. So 15% of the multifamily have 3 or more, which then tells you 85% of all multifamily has less than 3 people in it.
Correct.
So that's how we're reading this,
Per unit, yes.
per unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the numbers are higher in the towns than in Manchester, so percentage wise, people are raising families outside of Manchester.
Correct. Even compared to even when you're just looking at single family homes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's not huge. It's, it's 10%, I guess. And that would vary a lot based on towns. Like Auburn has a place like Auburn or Wyndham has a much higher, 3 person or more rate than Candia or Deerfield or Chester.
Well, this makes sense when you think about the table we saw on the kids per unit, which was about half. So if you take two homes, one of them has kids, the other one does not. That's what this tells me.
That's a fair answer.
Basically, the younger people that have the kids, obviously, so the population, by saying there's more kids, you're saying there's more of a, probably a younger adult population than the other towns that don't.
That's, it's hard to tell that from the data, but that's what we would assume. It could be that you have a Golden Girls situation, where you have four, roommates living together, but my guess is the majority of them are, families. And looking at that kind of again, if we just do it by household, so on the left, we have the total number of households by town, and then we have, persons in the household, 2% or less, 3 or more. So I'll pick on my town, Manchester, 68% of all households have 2 or less people in them. And these are occupied, so if it's vacant, it doesn't count. And 33% have more rounding. Keep in mind that that does add up to 100%. It's just a rounding error. And so you can see most of the towns have, or I should say more than half have a majority, 2 or less people. New Boston, Ware, Hooksett, Londonderry. There are some towns that do have more, 3 or more. Bedford, Chester, Wyndham. If you built a bunch of single family homes in the last 10 to 15 years, and generally you're going to have more families. That's just the way it works out. And if you haven't, like Candia has not built a lot in the last 20 years. You can see that they have a rate that's comparable to Manchester. And the left there just shows you the difference between 1980 and 2020 for the percentage of those 3 or more persons per household. So in Londonderry, 1980, 59% of households had 59 or had 3 or more people. By 2020, it was 47. So on average, the region has the number region wide of 3 or more has decreased by 8% over that 40-year period. And part of that is reflected in the permit data. So what we have here is the net annual housing unit building permit. This is just the building permits. This is not the certificate of occupancy. So these don't all necessarily have to be built. It's just that we have the building permits for that. And this is indexed at 100. So whatever your rate was in 2002, what is 100? So if it's below 100, it means it went down. If it was above 100, it means you went up. So you can see that everybody's building 2002, 2003, 2004, about 2006, 2005, something starts happening. Obviously, housing crisis, financial crisis. And then you see by 2010, with the exception of Goffstown is still building some, but nobody's building anything. And then when we get into some of the later years, towns like Auburn and I believe that's Londonderry start building again at rates that either exceed or meet their previous rates. But most of us are still building at 30% of what we were doing 2 decades later. And that has ramifications because here we have the charts. The chart on the left is for our region showing active property listings. So in 2010, this is a 12-month moving average. There was over 1,600 units for sale in our region. By 2021, or actually it'd be late summer of 2022, there were 200. So there are now roughly 1,400 fewer units for sale than there was a decade ago, and that's reflected in the price. In 2010, the nominal price for a median nominal price in our region was 200 grand. If you can believe that. I wish I could. And now by 2021, when Zach is wanting to buy a home, it's now 400 grand. So we could solve this quickly. I'd appreciate it. And it's just supply and demand. It's not complicated. And there are other factors that affect cost. This is going to take a little time to work on to figure out, but I want you to spend some time to figure it out. So the bottom line, the x-axis is the average acreage for a house, single-family home in in SNHPC region. And on the right there is the average property value. And this is done by decile. So you put them all together in a row, you take the average for each. And what this is showing is that, the cost of a house increases significantly between, basically a postage stamp city lot and about 3 acres. And then after that, it's basically flat. As you add more, if 10 acres, it's pretty much the same throughout the region. So, a home on 1 acre costs twice as much as a home on 1/10 of an acre. And this varies throughout towns and among towns, but that pattern still remains. And this has implications for a town. The town, the typical single family home in Derry on 1/10 of an acre is worth $83,000 less than the typical home on 1 acre, but generates 12 times as much gross revenue for the town per acre. And so when you have a hypothetical development, if you have 10 acres and you build it out at 10 acre plots, your total for their total value for, I'm sorry, let me start that again. When you have a 10 acre single family homes on property value of 10 acres, you have basically 1 home, so you have a home value of $430,000. Let's, if you make that 1 acre, you now have a property value of 3.2 million. If you make that a quarter, now it's 10.7 million. 1/10 of an acre, 24 million, for that total development. And that makes up a difference in the end, because here we have 2 single family homes in a single community. And they're both, single family homes. The one on the left is on 1/10 of an acre. The one on the right is on a full acre. The one on the left was built in 1910. The one on the right was built in 2004. The floor area ratio, which is the total square footage of the home compared to the lot, is much higher, obviously, for the one on 1/10 of an acre. But they're both receiving water and sewer services, and they're the one on the left is less than 1/10 of a mile from a Fed aid eligible road, about a mile from a state maintained road, where the one on the right is 1.2 miles from a federal aid eligible road, and the one about 2 miles from a state maintained road. And that means they have to run the same water and sewer pipes, the same roads, all the way out there. And how much are they paying for these 2 communities? The property value on the one on the left is 300,000, the one on the right 500,000, but the value per acre for the one on the left is 3.4 million. From the one on the right, it's about 344,000. And I believe that's all I have. I actually don't know who's next.
Any
Questions before we move on?
Yeah, that's a lot. I did tell you to buckle in. I warned everyone.
Well, the whole thing about the value, but where it costs.
So that's much, and that's,
Did you admit, Rudy?
oh, sure. That is a complicated,
Right, so it's just as long as we admit that here's the value. Don't just look over here, because this is part of the picture.
yeah, so the cost, and there's currently so the cost component is arguably much harder to quantify. In general, studies have shown that the cost is as you increase density, the cost does not get. So if you have a small town and they don't have a high school, and suddenly you build 10,000 units, you have a very big jump in cost there. But if you have an incremental marginal cost, so if you go from having 10,000 units and you already have a high school and you add another 1,000, the marginal cost there is much lower. And working that all out with individual towns, there is a consultant working on that for New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, where they picked 6 towns. I don't think there were any in our region, where they actually go out and they map and they try to figure out the cost and compare it to the value.
It's not even that, it's just everything is so complicated. There's so many federal and state regulations about how you do things. Like back in the day where mothers could teach French, you know, unless you have. It's all about communities are almost hardly allowed to be their own community anymore because everything is regulated. How you build the school, how big a gymnasium is, that you have to have a gymnasium. So the costs, it's hard to get away from those costs because you're not allowed to. And it's not communities deciding their own regulations. It's like from above, you're trapped in this rat hole. Yeah, I don't know how to fix it.
We're gonna take a time out. We're gonna take a time out, Dave.
Yes, second row down near the middle, you might see Mr. Hall. And his son's name there is Ram Hall, but Al Hall, longtime member of this commission. I can almost hear in my brain, Al, you commenting on practically every motion that we ever discussed.
Al, you're
And
muted.
we took time to listen to you because of your sage advice. Thank you for joining us today, Al.
Oh, I'm surprised and pleased to be able to do this and be able to say hello to you all. Unfortunate the circumstances, but all is well here at Barker Living Center, Rockingham County, and I know that Candy is represented. I think is being well recommended by, represented by Rudy Cartier. And I see Sylvia had a nice article in the paper supporting some project there within the last week or so. But
We're glad you're keeping up on things.
things. Well, I'm trying to. If you have any mail, you can just send it to the Barker Living Center, 117 North Road, here in Brentwood.
Al, are you promoting a housing need assessment?
No, but as a matter of fact, they've been interested. The Rockingham County Commission is having a meeting a week from Thursday. The subject is the 24 budget. But the annual year is July 1st to July 1st to June 30th. So it's coming right up, and they've advised me that they're gonna, with my questioning, some discrete questioning, you know how it is, they're gonna provide me with, I think it's a 24-page report on the budget, and looking forward to helping them on that and helping the folks here at the Barker Living Center.
Al, I'm glad to hear you're staying in touch with your community and helping them too.
Right. And I wish I could do more for Southern New Hampshire planning, because I have a warm spot in my heart for that. And you must be having an executive committee meeting today, is it?
This is our full commission.
Yeah.
Oh, your full
Maybe
commission.
we could pan the camera so Al can see everybody.
Okay, yeah.
Well, they're all.
So,
Oh,
yes,
yeah, there.
yes, Al, about 2/3 of our commissioners are here in the room. The other third are attending
Oh, they're,
by the computer like you are.
yeah.
So,
Oh, good. Glad to hear they're all active, just keep doing what you're doing, and things will work out well, I'm sure.
The son, his son has some things for him, right?
Yeah, I think your son may have given you a couple of things from us to express our appreciation.
So Rand, speak up.
Yep, here we go, right here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. hopefully I've represented the town of Candia appropriately and
Oh,
as
yeah.
best I could. And that Rudy will continue on. Appreciate it.
Well, Al,
Thank you for- thank
Al,
you
I
for
think what
serving.
you're looking at there, Al, is certificate of appreciation and a card from everyone.
Should have sent him pizza.
Oh,
And
my God.
send him pizza, that's right. I hope you have pizza over there at that center.
Oh, I'll try to, anytime you guys are in the Brentwood area.
We'll
you
stop
can,
by.
Just stop by, U 243 is the number of my place, but the folks at the office, let's just put it, I'm making myself well known.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you've done for me. You've done more for me than I've done for you, but I'm glad to, when my mother was on the Southern New Hampshire planning, she couldn't speak enough favorite wellness for the commission and all the good things they do for the town of Candia, and that hopefully that Candia is doing for Southern New Hampshire planning. And thanks Sylvia, and my best to everyone there, and come visit anytime.
Thank you.
Okay,
Al.
Al, thank you so much. We're gonna
Thank
expect
you.
your son to be a commissioner next, since it's in the blood there.
No. Okay.
This video is the great, yeah. Keep in touch, people.
Thank you, Al.
All right,
We'll
Al.
sign off here.
All right,
Right.
Sylvia, wrapping up our agenda, commissioners, any insight, comments? from-
1 second, we're, quick. Let me wrap this up real quick.
Yeah, to adopt them.
Yeah, we want to adopt this, but I want to share a couple things with you. Move it to the next slide.
So go back to Zach and.
Well, this was the last slide. So Zach's all set.
Yeah. Right click.
But you wanted an adoption?
Well, hold on.
We have a couple things left to.
There we go.
So, yeah, so where have we done, what have we done for outreach? What are we doing for outreach? And what are some next steps? So I'm not gonna read you every single line item, obviously, but right now we are taking a tour with the Regional Housing Needs Assessment. We've gone to the Manchester Housing Commission. We are going to be part of the New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development, the Spring Planning and Zoning Conference. Zach will be talking about the data, and I'll be talking about next steps this coming Saturday.
Both gonna be in the same session?
No, different sessions.
I'm housing and you're in, well, she's after me. She's the last one, so, and I'm the middle one. Save the best for last. That's right.
Thank you, John. Yes. We're talking to the Hooksett Planning Board. Next slide. We've also, as a group, all the regional planning commissions got together, working with New Hampshire Municipal Association. We put out an article to touch on key findings, the outreach and engagement, meeting regional needs, and also the strategies and next steps. So if you take a look at the May-June issue, you'll see an extensive article there. We're hosting, all the regional planning commissions are hosting a commissioner convening. We have 5 representatives from this commission. Each commission is allotted about, I think, 7 tickets. So 2 will be staff, 5 will be commissioners. And you all recall we had invited the Reynolds here to talk about employer housing. And that was the example where the employer built their own housing because they couldn't house their staff, and so they couldn't staff their business. So they figured it out themselves. They're invited to this. And it's about building housing ambassadors, really, because we know so many communities, housing is a 4-letter word. And people are very nervous about housing, and a lot of the not in my backyard. So kind of trying to build that yes in my backyard attitude. So housing ambassadors. Next slide. And Jen, are you out there?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I turned my camera off instead of unmuting myself.
Thank you. Let me get your, where is that? You get your picture. There's Jen. So I asked Jen to join me. Jen is the executive director over at Stratford Regional Planning Commission. And Jen was instrumental in getting all the regional planning commissions this grant from HUD. And you know much better than I do, Jen. So if you could just give us a couple of minutes on this.
Sure. So this is going to allow us to carry forward the work on the regional housing needs assessments and incorporate some of that work into our regional comprehensive plans. Those were last adopted over the course of, or worked on over the course of 2013 to 2015 under that Granite State Future Initiative. For each region, we were able to select which chapters we would update. It does not provide us enough funding to do a complete update of the regional comprehensive plan, but it does allow us to update a couple chapters and carry that work and research forward. It also provides each of us with additional funding for some outreach and engagement, as well as to conduct pilot or individual implementation projects. So taking our regional housing needs assessment and carrying it forward and providing some additional resources towards municipalities and their work on the ground. And so each of the regions has identified some different activities that they might do under that. Some are working to expand upon the housing toolbox. Others are looking to implement one of the resources that are detailed in the housing toolbox, and so forth. So just giving us a little bit more momentum to carry forward.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. And one of the things we want to do is check in with our communities and to see what they want to do for this pilot program. So you'll see that hopefully, I won't say in the next few months, because this is taking a bit longer because this is a HUD grant and this seems to be a rather large dinosaur to get moving. So thanks, John. And so what we are hoping is that probably by Christmas, this might be a nice Christmas present, I think, for us. Anyway, and I think, is there one more slide? That's it. That's our housing team. We can stop sharing. You figure that out. Thank you. Any questions? And if none, I would love to see a motion to adopt the regional housing needs assessment.
So moved.
Thanks, John.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. We have a how thick of an assessment document?
The document, the main thing is maybe 125 pages, and then there's at least 800 pages of appendices.
Is this the most voluminous assessment need or document this commission has published?
I don't know.
Probably is.
Comprehensive plan was pretty big, but yes, it might.
So
we just need a vote.
Yes, Zach. So we have a regional housing need assessment. Motion to approve it. I call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Raise your hand on the screen.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
See.
Thanks, Jen.
A favorable vote. Any opposing? Any abstaining? One abstaining.
All right. And is there any other business?
Nope,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
Thanks, everybody.
I have a motion. to
Appreciate it.
adjourn. It was seconded by. I'll second it and
All right, till next time.
everyone wave goodbye. That's a vote.
Bye, everyone.
That's something.